Hello, everybody. Welcome into the best place for the best takes on this Monday, October 28th, 2024. We've got a lot to talk about. I have been very football-centric over the past couple weeks, and in watching some of the comments and whatnot, I think it's time that we start talking about some other sports. Very exciting time in the sports world. We've got baseball. We've got some great UFC fights over the weekend, which I may or may not get into if we have enough time. And I think basketball season deserves being talked about. I have never talked about basketball this early in the year, but you know what? What LeBron James and the Lakers and JJ Redick are doing deserves it, so we're actually going to start there before we get to the football. I'm also going to talk some World Series because tonight we've got Game 3, and it could end up being a New York nightmare if the Yankees don't turn it around. I'll break it down in a second, but first let's start with this. Over the weekend, the last game they beat the Kings, but I think the game that really stands out to me for this Lakers team is that 22-point comeback against the Phoenix Suns where KD had 30, Devin Booker had 23. The Suns played well, but the Lakers played better. And it's been a long time since the Lakers have looked this re-energized and have played like a team in this way. There was a post on the Lakers' Instagram and their Twitter that was a post-game, like not press conference, but a post-game speech in the locker room from JJ Redick to the team. And the comment section underneath that speech was hilarious to me. Like the top comment was, if we could call Darvin Ham again and fire him again, we should. And, you know, you never want to laugh about somebody's job, but man, that made me laugh because it's absolutely true. Everybody said that it was not nepotism, but favoritism and the LeBron James hooks that are in the NBA that got Darvin Ham fired because he was a qualified head coach and he was a relatively good head coach, but he just wanted to get his friend and JJ Redick, his podcast buddy, in the driver's seat as the head coach. And that take could not be more wrong on this Monday morning when JJ Redick has started off the season 3-0. The 2-0 start that came on Saturday is the best start the Lakers have had to a season since Phil Jackson's last season when they started 2-0 with him. JJ Redick proved on TV when he was an analyst that he's one of the best basketball minds on the planet. That's not even a question. And now he is putting that knowledge into practice, and the Lakers look like a different team. Think about this. When you go to blame or when you go to defend Darvin Ham, this is the Lakers team that we saw what they looked like 2 years ago. We saw what they looked like last season. We remember what they were like under Frank Vogel during that bubble run, even if it was the bubble and it was a Mickey Mouse ring is what everybody says. Remember who they were. Remember the intensity that they played with, and it was a different roster. Then remember the Darvin Ham era, which just feels not sloppy, but like slow and uninspired and sluggish. And then think of what we watched with these key players between the Olympics, AD and LeBron, what we saw from them in the summer, where we know, neither of these guys are washed. Each of them is playing their best basketball individually. Last season, LeBron James could be a top 10 player on any given night, and AD played the most he has and was the most effective version of himself, and he proved that he is not washed and he is still a guy on any NBA team. And then they went together in the Olympics and they dominated together. Now you're seeing in the regular season, LeBron is playing lights out, scored 16 straight points, was lethal in the fourth quarter, could not miss a shot. AD put up 35 in this Suns game. AD is playing his best basketball, had 8 rebounds in that game, is getting to the glass, is playing like the scariest version that we've seen of Anthony Davis. Austin Reeves is producing better than even JJ Redick thought. He was quoted after the game saying that. Gabe Vincent is putting in valuable minutes. Rui is playing well, and we're going to get to the clip that we all saw this weekend in a second. But, that is the Lakers team that is gelling. And I heard Charles Barkley and Shaq going back and forth, and I can't remember which one said it. I want to say that it was Charles Barkley who made the remark of, this is a play-in team, best case scenario. And when you're an analyst on TV, I've had moments like that where it's very easy to be the pessimist and to look at a team's history and just think, there's no chance this team is any different. Charles Barkley and anybody else who thinks that is wrong. This Lakers team is entirely different. This proves what a great head coach does for a team. And I understand that we don't value coaching as much in an individual sport like basketball or in the NBA. And I'm not saying that a basketball coach is just as important as a coach in the NFL in terms of the head coach role. But yeah, coaching does matter. I've never understood that other take from other people when I've grown up in Miami, Florida, watching Eric Spoelstra. Great coaching matters, and it makes a difference. And JJ Redick has proven himself to be a great head coach. A 3-0 start for the Lakers. This is not a play-in team. This is a team that can make it comfortably to the Western Conference Finals. And LeBron James is playing like the best version of himself, and he's trying to get the best out of himself. And I had a conversation this week, and I thought it was a really good point, where someone very close to me said, LeBron is going to play with a different kind of intensity this season because he's playing alongside his son. And people may think, those two things are unrelated. And the point itself is pretty valid if you're being honest. LeBron now playing with his son. LeBron has already achieved so much that it is not enough for him to simply play alongside Bronny and say, you know what, I'm happy I've made it to this point, I'm content. LeBron is going to try to go all the way with Bronny at his side. They're going to try to win this ring, and with J.J. Redick as their head coach, and AD playing basketball the way he is, and Austin Reeves and Gabe Vincent and Rui making shots and playing their role, and LeBron playing the way that he is right now, arguably the best basketball that he's played in the last 3 years, which is saying something because he is a top 12 to top 13 player in the NBA, could be a top 10 or 5 player on any given night, and now with the addition of Bronny seemingly making him inspired and him looking at Bronny after he hits tough shots and having his son there to motivate him and cheer him on, it's a different energy surrounding this Lakers team, and if you think this is the same old Lakers team, you are horribly mistaken. Let's move on to another blue blood in the sports world, a great story in my opinion. This Yankees team, because I'm not a huge regular season baseball guy. I've said this for years. Too many games. You've got to get rid of the games. I understand that ticket sales are important for teams, but 130-plus games, nobody can keep track of all of those. And Florida, you know what? We've got some pretty poor teams, if I'm being honest, so it's hard to root for them. But this Yankees team, going up against this Dodgers team, is something really fun to watch. So I have said this for years, and I had this discussion with a friend of mine as well last week where we kind of know who the Yankees are for several years now. They have had the same strengths and the same weaknesses. They have arguably the best home run hitting lineup in the MLB. They've got the biggest sluggers in the league in Stanton and Aaron Judge and in Juan Soto now, who Juan Soto is going to have to declare. Juan Soto might make the New York Yankees declare bankruptcy when he asks for $500 or $600 million this offseason, and they are forced to pay him because that's how much he has done for this team. He has been the one bright spot so far in the first 2 games of the World Series for this Yankees team because nobody else really has been. In the end, I think it's going to come down to their leader. It's not Stanton. It's not Juan Soto. It's going to come down to Aaron Judge now that they're down 2-0. Aaron Judge has to be that slugger because multiple times this season we've already seen they do not want to throw fastballs to Juan Soto. They would rather walk him. So they're willing to walk Juan Soto, and we've seen this in the World Series, in order to get Aaron Judge to the plate and then force him to have to swing and throw him your best stuff because Aaron Judge this season, specifically in this World Series, has not been great. Through the first 2 games of the World Series, Aaron Judge has been at the plate 24 times. Let me make sure I get this right. In the first 2 games of the World Series, Judge has swung the bat 24 times. He has missed 14 of those swings. So Aaron Judge is one of those guys who is a slugger in every sense of the word and is trying to be the hero and is trying to hit it out of the ballpark, especially if they're walking Juan Soto before. He feels that pressure to have to perform, to have to step up to the plate, and he has not been able to do so yet. And I've said this about the Yankees over the years, and more so this season as well. It feels like when the Yankees play and they're stressed out, you can feel it. You can feel the tension at the plate when the Yankees' biggest hitters are there, like a Juan Soto, like an Aaron Judge, like a Giancarlo Stanton. They are all trying to be the hero, and it's been the bane of their existence. Ben, why are you being hyperbolic? I'm not being hyperbolic. I have the stats in front of me here. The Yankees have swung at 147 pitches and missed 52 times during this postseason, during this World Series. The Dodgers have swung at 133 pitches in their first 2 games and have missed just 24. So me saying the Yankees are trying to be the hero and their sluggers are trying to knock this thing out of the ballpark and they are swinging for the fences is not being hyperbolic, and it is their biggest weakness. And I think the biggest mismatch in terms of this entire series has to be the pitching. The Dodgers have not only the best pitcher, they also have the deeper bullpen. And so when those guys like Yamamoto are throwing it downfield and they're throwing that perfect breaking ball or they're throwing that perfect curve, the Yankees have always been a team that struggled to hit that fastball. They are trying desperately to swing at fastballs because that is their bread and butter. That's what the Yankees feel like. That is their identity. It is hitting it out of the ballpark. It's their big hitters, their home run guys, the Stantons, the Juan Sotos, and the Judges of the world. They want that fastball because they want to knock that thing. They want the exit velocity on that ball to reach triple digits and well into it every single time. They do not want to have to swing at curves, and they don't swing particularly well when it comes to the curve. There are plenty of stats on that as well that I don't have in front of me on this paper that I printed out, but I was reading about it this morning. They've just got to be better. Stanton, last stat that I'll leave you with here, his on-base percentage this October is .605, which is down more than 500 points from his MLB best regular season, 1.159. So Stanton's going to have to be better. I think Stanton will have to be better. Aaron Judge, though, is going to have to be better as well, and that's what it'll come down to. I want to move on here to football. So we're going to get into football now. So I want to make sure I have the headline in front of me. I was going to go Anthony Richardson first, but I think I want to go with the Browns first here, and we'll make it quick. So the Browns are back right now is what it feels like. They win 29-24 over this Baltimore Ravens team. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, good game. Kind of collapsed there at the end, which does scare me as someone who roots for the Ravens because that's what they are in the postseason. It's they play their best football, and then all of a sudden it comes apart in the end. So it does worry me a little bit, but not as much as it's worrying the national media. I think the Browns are a really good team. I've said that. To me, the reason they would not make the playoffs this season, and I said this in the offseason, was because of Deshaun Watson. It's not because I didn't have faith in their coach and Kevin Stefanski, who's a pretty damn good head coach, or faith in the roster because that's a pretty good roster. Myles Garrett, they had Amari Cooper. They've got guys stepping up on the perimeter now. They have a good run game, great offensive line, great defensive line, great secondary as well, or at least good secondary. Ward, I think, is their best guy, and that's without question. But the Browns, to me, this is the story here. When I watched the Browns play yesterday, I can't help but wonder, what could this Browns team have been if they weren't so stubborn? I always say this to friends, and I say this to other people. Don't get married to mistakes. And there's a lot of phrases out there that are similar to that you've heard over time. To me, don't get married to mistakes is one of my biggest pet peeves in life, in football, in sports, in decision-making. If you make a mistake, be the first to admit you're wrong. I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong when it comes to these issues. I'll come on a Monday and tell you, man, I was totally wrong about that. We'll laugh about it, we'll acknowledge it, and we'll break down why. And I think that is arguably one of the best parts of this show. But I think when you're in an NFL front office, don't get married to a mistake. The Browns married themselves to Deshaun Watson with that contract, and they married themselves to a mistake this season by not being willing to, before he went down, say, you know what? He's not the guy. He's not the same guy he used to be, and he's not our guy. We've got to move off him or we've got to bench him because he does not give us the best chance to win on Sundays, and they were in denial. That entire team was, including their head coach and Kevin Stefanski, who did defend him. And I think I don't put as much blame on Stefanski for that because I think Stefanski's in a weird predicament as a head coach of that team, knowing that the ownership paid Deshaun Watson what they paid him. But when you look at Jameis Winston, he wasn't perfect. Jameis Winston was not perfect this weekend, and I think that's the best part of the story. No Browns quarterback this season had thrown for over 200 yards. Jameis threw for 342 and led a game-winning drive with a 30-plus yard touchdown to put the cherry on top there. Jameis Winston, I cannot help but wonder what Jameis Winston would have done in this offense earlier in the season had they given him the opportunity over Deshaun, when Deshaun was obviously one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league, and everybody outside of Cleveland and maybe even in Cleveland could see it, but the front office and the coaching staff just wasn't willing to make the move, and maybe it was ownership. We're not in there, so we really don't know. But I will say, it wasn't perfect. Jameis had that fumble. Not ideal. That is Jameis Winston football after all. But he also did give the Browns something they haven't had since Joe Flacco and since, before Deshaun at least. They didn't have this with Deshaun. They didn't have explosive plays. Jameis has always given you big play potential, whether it's a pick six or a 60-yard touchdown. That's for you to figure out as a head coach and as a team, but that team plays very well with Jameis, and they were playing re-energized. And I think this is the other thing, too. Look at that Browns defense. Look at how much better they performed against an amazing Ravens offense. It's not that the Browns defense is great or that it's terrible. It's that when Jameis Winston and this Browns offense got rolling, and even when you weren't scoring and you had to punt, it wasn't a 3-and-out like it was with Deshaun. You give your defense an opportunity to catch their breath, and that was very necessary against this Ravens team in terms of not letting the game get away from you, as the defensive backs were absolutely gassed as they had been all season. They were able to recover here and really catch their breath in a way that they haven't been able to all season. So it begs the question, I'm going to come back to this. If the Browns had made the switch sooner, where would the season be? So people are going to say, Ben, that's a hypothetical. The Browns are 2-6 right now. All they've got is hypothetical, so we might as well try to figure this thing out. 4 of the Browns' games this season were lost by 1 score or were decided by 1 score. If Winston had been the Cincinnati Bengals backup, the backup for the Browns against the Cincinnati Bengals, where would they be? Dorian Thompson was the second-string guy. I don't know where that happened or why that happened, if they were trying to see if he could give them some good minutes or some good play. I don't know. I think everybody understood Jameis should have been the guy. What happens if you put Jameis in after Deshaun goes down in that Cincinnati Bengals game instead of Dorian Thompson? Do you have a better record right now? Do you win that game? Do you have an opportunity to improve and to build an identity even earlier than you did yesterday? Because now the Browns have an identity. Now the Browns look like a football team. They didn't with Dorian Thompson, and they certainly did not with Deshaun Watson under center. Games like the Giants won, like the Raiders won, like there's so many games I could point to. I'm looking at their schedule here. The Eagles won. These could have all been different outcomes. And so when I look at that, could the Browns have been 5-3? Could they have been 4-4 at this point? I don't know. But they could have been better than what they are currently. And I think I would credit this mistake or this poor judgment to the Browns organization and their front office. Last story here before we go. Because this one, everybody's killing him this morning. And I mean killing him quite literally. That's not an exaggeration when it comes to Anthony Richardson and what is being said about him this morning on TV and the headlines that I'm reading and the tweets from even some of the most favorable and historically nice guys in sports media. Anthony Richardson saying he needed a breather in the second half of that Colts loss. I'm going to read the quote here in its entirety because I want to be fair. Quote, "I was tired," he said. "I ain't going to lie. That was a lot of running right there. I didn't think I was going to be able to go that next play, so I told Shane I just needed a break right there." Shane Steichen said he needed a breather. He ran 3 times in a row, and it was 3rd and long, so we're going to hand the ball off. Guys, what are we talking about here? I am not going to go in on Anthony Richardson the way that everyone else is this morning, but we've got to have a little bit more self-awareness at the podium because that is a part of being the quarterback and of playing the quarterback position in the NFL. Anthony Richardson going to the podium and saying, "I was a little bit tired," and he said something later on that I'm going to get into in a second that infuriated me and to me is even more hypocritical than anything else he said, but it's not getting enough attention. Anthony Richardson was not drafted because he was a field general. He wasn't drafted because he was a Joe Burrow that could throw a ball to any blade of grass on the field. He wasn't drafted because he was a 4 or 5 year starter who had just played a lot in college. He wasn't a guy who was drafted because of his win percentage and because all he did was win in college, like Georgia's quarterback from a few years ago who, if nothing else, was just not. Stetson Bennett is who I'm thinking of. Just won games, but wasn't physically talented. The reason Anthony Richardson was drafted 4th overall in the 2023 NFL Draft was simply because of his athleticism. Nothing more. He wasn't a great pocket presence. He wasn't a great thrower of the football. He wasn't accurate. He wasn't a 4-year starter. He didn't do nothing but win in college. It was just because of the upside of his athleticism. And that's the reason why he decided to sub himself out of the game because he was tired, because he didn't have the conditioning to stay in one more snap on a 3rd down in a game on a 3rd down in the 3rd quarter of a game that if you win helps you get in a position to be tied. The Colts would have been tied in the division with the Texans for the lead, and you decide that you're tired in that moment. Very easy for me to say is what everybody's going to make the argument about. Very easy for people in the media to say when they're sitting on a microphone. I'm not judging Anthony Richardson's athleticism or his capability, but for that to be the reason why you are sidelined, I can't help you. When someone thinks that and someone says that out loud, some PR training has to be done. I think everybody loves in the NFL and the NBA now more than ever, a Keon Coleman or an Anthony Edwards, guys who are unapologetically themselves, right? Authenticity is king. You've seen that everywhere, and I do like that to a certain extent. But Anthony Richardson saying, "I was tired," of all the reasons he could have named and the way in which he said it, Shannon Sharp said it this morning, guys in the locker room are not going to like you quitting on the team in that moment on a 3rd down in the 3rd quarter of a game that if you win could put you in position to lead the division or at least be tied to lead. It's not a good look. And then Anthony Richardson said this at the end of the... First of all, Anthony Richardson, let's go on stats here. I'm going to name this first. Or you know what? Let me read the quote first and then we'll get into the stats. "I feel like I'm a great passer," he said. "I've been playing quarterback pretty much my whole life. I'm just a different quarterback from everybody else. So people are going to try to point out that I'm not as efficient as everybody else, but it's cool to me. I run the ball way better than every other quarterback, probably not Lamar Jackson, but better than most quarterbacks, so I take advantage of my opportunities." two major hypocritical things in there. I'm not going to even address the Lamar Jackson comment. The first thing he said and the last thing he said in that quote, I feel like I'm a great passer. And then he said at the end of that quote, I take advantage of my opportunities. Anthony Richardson cannot go into the podium and in good faith out loud say, I'm taking advantage of my opportunities when you took a snap off on third down in the third quarter of a game that if you win could have put you in position to be tied to lead the division alongside the Texans in the AFC South. And you cannot say you're a great quarterback or you're a great passer of the football when you go 10 for 32 in a game. In the first half, you're 2 of 15, and that you have the most Anthony Richardson stat line of all time. We had 2 completions and 81 passing yards off one downfield 69-yard throw. Anthony Richardson is not a guy in the NFL, and I believe he was a bust, and there's no coach that is going to be able to fix that, because if any coach could fix it, it would have been Shane Steichen, because he's the prototypical guy. He had Jalen Hurts. He took him under his wing. He developed Jalen Hurts, and even Jalen Hurts looks a little shaky now without him. That is the kind of build and playing style that Anthony Richardson should have been inspired to play and should have been playing efficiently and effectively under Shane Steichen's rule and under his reign and coaching, and he hasn't. And to me, I'm done with the Anthony Richardson thing. The experiment is over. He wasn't an accurate thrower of the football in college. He didn't play a lot. He's only played like 20-something games since high school. It's a crazy statistic. I would have never drafted Anthony Richardson at 4th. And hindsight's 20/20, and it's very easy for me to say, but it's a disaster. With that being said, we've got some great games tonight. Game 3 of the World Series in New York. Dodgers lead 2-0. Who wins that one? I got to believe in my Yankees that they find a way to fight back in this. I think they'll be motivated at home. I think they'll understand we have to win this game. Otherwise, the series is over. Only 10 teams that have gone down 2-0 in the World Series have gone on to win the ring and have gone on to win the entire thing. So that stat deserves to be said. We've also got Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Giants. I assume Steelers win that game with Russell Wilson or with Justin Fields. Whoever they march out there is going to be better coached by Mike Tomlin than the Giants right now. And that's not a shot at Brian Daboll. It's more of a shot at Daniel Jones, who apparently, according to a report this morning that I read on Pro Football Talk, apparently has a longer leash than most people think. They're going to leave him out there. In my opinion, yeah, they've got to leave him out there because they've got to figure out, okay, can he play football or can we just move off him with no guilt this offseason when we draft another guy? That's what their decision is. So like I said, great afternoon of football, of baseball. We've got 11 NBA games on tonight as well. The Lakers play tonight against the Suns once again. Last time they faced off against each other a few days ago, the Lakers made a 22-point comeback. I like how all the stories were connected here today. I think we had a great show. Make sure to comment down below. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And do enjoy this week of sports because it is October and it feels like it.